10 journeys and cases where the expected ending never arrived. This countdown moves from number 10 to number 1, with each archive leading into the next. We begin with Franklin's Lost Expedition, the mystery that never fully closed. Franklin's Lost Expedition was a failed British voyage of Arctic exploration led by Captain Sir John Franklin that departed England in 1845 aboard two ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, and was assigned to traverse the last unnavigated sections of the Northwest Passage in the Canadian Arctic and to record magnetic data to help determine whether a better understanding could aid navigation. The expedition met with disaster after both ships and their crews, a total of 129 officers and men, became icebound in Victoria Strait near King William Island in what is today the Canadian territory of Nunavut. After being icebound for more than a year, Erebus and Terror were abandoned in April 1848, by which point 24 men, including Franklin, had died. The unanswered trail of Franklin's lost expedition leads to Essex, whaleship, where the final known evidence points in a different direction. At number 9, Essex, whaleship, the mystery that never fully closed. Essex was an American whaling ship from Nantucket, Massachusetts, which was launched in 1799. On November 20, 1820, while at sea in the southern Pacific Ocean under the command of Captain George Pollard, Jr., the ship was attacked and sunk by a sperm whale. About 2,000 nautical miles, 3,700 kilometers, from the coast of South America, the 20-man crew was forced to make for land in 3 whaleboats with what food and water they could salvage from the wreck. After a month at sea, the crew landed on the uninhabited Henderson Island. The unanswered trail of Essex, whaleship, leads to Batavia, 1628 ship, where the final known evidence points in a different direction. At number 8, Batavia, 1628 ship, the mystery that never fully closed. Batavia, Dutch pronunciation, Batavia, was a ship of the Dutch East India Company, VOC. She was built in Amsterdam in 1628 as the flagship of one of the 3 annual fleets of company ships and sailed that year on her maiden voyage for Batavia, capital of the Dutch East Indies. On the 4th of June 1629, Batavia was wrecked on the Houtman Brolhos, a chain of small islands off Western Australia. As the ship broke apart, approximately 300 of the Batavia's 341 passengers and crew made their way ashore, the rest drowning in their attempts. The unanswered trail of Batavia, 1628 ship, leads to Lady Be Good, aircraft, where the final known evidence points in a different direction. At number 7, Lady Be Good, aircraft, the mystery that never fully closed. Lady Be Good is a B-24D Liberator bomber that disappeared without a trace on its first combat mission during World War II. The plane, which was from 376th Bomb Group of the United States Army Air Forces, USAF, was believed to have been lost, with its 9-man crew, in the Mediterranean Sea while returning to its base in Libya following a bombing raid on Naples on April 4, 1943. However, the wreck was accidentally discovered 710 kilometers, 440 miles inland in the Libyan desert by an oil exploration team from British Petroleum on November 9, 1958. A ground party in March 1959 identified the aircraft as a B-24D. The unanswered trail of Lady Be Good, aircraft, leads to Loiseau Blanc, where the final known evidence points in a different direction. At number 6, Loiseau Blanc, the mystery that never fully closed. Loiseau Blanc, L'Oiseau Blanc, English, the White Bird, was a French Levasseur PL.8 biplane that disappeared in 1927 during an attempt to make the first non-stop transatlantic flight between Paris and New York City to compete for the Autic Prize. French World War I aviation heroes Charles Nungesser, third highest French ace with 43 air combat victories during World War I, and François Collet took off from Paris on the 8th of May 1927 and were last seen over Ireland. Less than 2 weeks later, Charles Lindbergh flew New York-Paris in the spirit of St. Louis and claimed the prize. The unanswered trail of Loiseau Blanc leads to 1947 BSAA Avro-Lancastrian Stardust accident, where the final known evidence points in a different direction. At number 5, 1947 BSAA Avro-Lancastrian Stardust accident, the mystery that never fully closed. On the 2nd of August 1947, Stardust, a British South American Airways, BSAA, Avro-Lancastrian airliner on a flight from Buenos Aires, Argentina, to Santiago, Chile, crashed into Mount Tupungato in the Argentine Andes. An extensive search operation failed to locate the wreckage, despite covering the area of the crash site. The fate of the aircraft and its occupants remained unknown for over 50 years, giving rise to various conspiracy theories about its disappearance. In the late 1990s, pieces of wreckage from the missing aircraft began to emerge from the glacial ice. It is now believed that the crew became confused as to their exact location while flying at high altitudes through the, then poorly understood, jet stream. The unanswered trail of 1947 BSAA Avro Lancastrian Stardust accident leads to BSAA Star Tiger disappearance, where the final known evidence points in a different direction. At number 4, BSAA Star Tiger disappearance, the mystery that never fully closed. Star Tiger, registration GAHNP, was an Avro Tudor passenger aircraft owned and operated by British South American Airways, BSAA, which disappeared without a trace over the Atlantic Ocean while on a flight between Santa Maria in the Azores and Bermuda in the early morning of the 30th of January 1948. The loss of the aircraft, along with that of BSAA Avro Tudor Star Ariel in 1949, remains unsolved. Its importance comes from the surviving evidence and the way later researchers reconstructed what happened. The details are often simplified in retellings, but the historical record preserves a more complicated sequence of decisions and consequences. The unanswered trail of BSAA Star Tiger disappearance leads to BSAA Star Ariel disappearance, where the final known evidence points in a different direction. At number 3, BSAA Star Ariel disappearance, the mystery that never fully closed. Star Ariel, registration GAGRE, was an Avro Tudor passenger aircraft owned and operated by British South American Airways, BSAA, which disappeared without a trace over the Atlantic Ocean while on a flight between Bermuda and Kingston, Jamaica, on the 17th of January 1949. The loss of the aircraft, along with that of BSAA Avro Tudor Star Tiger in January 1948, remains unsolved, with the resulting speculation helping to develop the Bermuda Triangle legend. Its importance comes from the surviving evidence and the way later researchers reconstructed what happened. The unanswered trail of BSAA Star Ariel disappearance leads to MV Joyita, where the final known evidence points in a different direction. At number 2, MV Joyita, the mystery that never fully closed. MV Joyita was an American merchant vessel from which 25 passengers and crew mysteriously disappeared in the South Pacific in October 1955. She was found adrift with no one aboard. The ship was in very poor condition, with corroded pipes and a radio which, while functional, had a range of only about 2 miles (3.2 kilometers) because of faulty wiring. However, the extreme buoyancy of the ship made sinking nearly impossible. Investigators were puzzled as to why the crew had not remained on board and waited for help. The unanswered trail of MV Joyita leads to CAS-2, where the final known evidence points in a different direction. At number 1, CAS-2, the mystery that never fully closed. CAS-2, dubbed the Ghost Yacht, is a 9.8-meter catamaran which was found drifting 88 nautical miles, 163 kilometers, off the northeastern coast of Australia on the 20th of April 2007. The fate of its 3-man crew remains unknown, and the mysterious circumstances in which they disappeared have been compared to that of Mary Celeste in 1872. Its importance comes from the surviving evidence and the way later researchers reconstructed what happened. The details are often simplified in retellings, but the historical record preserves a more complicated sequence of decisions and consequences. That was Top 10 Disappearances and Survival Mysteries. Every story in this countdown began as a shorter archive, but the connections only appear when the files are placed together. Subscribe for the next collection.